Matt, your business is not just about finding hidden value. It's about dealing with real people, real families, deep conflict. How do you stay grounded and level-headed in the midst of all that chaos?
I think just like taking a step back, but also trying to put yourself in someone's shoes about, how they got to that position, trying to understand like what their real motivations are. I would say a lot of the times like it is money for these people. They're pretty frustrated with the situation at hand. So, just having honest conversations with them and trying to put them into results-based thinking of like, what if you just let this go to tax sale? Like what happens then? I never try and sell anybody on anything. I think like my personality, I'm just able to connect with people. I don't want to sell somebody because if they're not going to engage with me, they're not going to. Like they've already made up their mind. So we can never force anybody to do anything. We just try and convey our points to them of like, hey, we're an option here on something that seemingly has very few options. Let me help you out here and like let me give you some amount of money so that the county doesn't take this on Tuesday.
Most investors are taught to walk away from title issues, but you built your business around chasing these specifically. Why?
Well, I would say
most real estate investors chase clean deals, fast flips, and easy equity. Not Matt, founder of Titan Equity. He earned $160,000 in a single month. That's after earning a couple $100,000 the year before. But as his business improves, he picked up $250,000 in the first quarter of this year in his quickly growing distressed property business. He came from the real estate business, but just figured out how to shake it up. Welcome, Matt.
Happy to be here.
Matt, you made $160,000 in a single month from broken, forgotten, messy real estate. What are people not understanding about these kind of deals that you clearly do?
Well, they're everywhere, I would say. A lot more common than you would think. A lot of these deals, I think, are properties that are just, to your point, forgotten. People don't want to deal with them. Maybe the owners of these properties tried to sell in the past, and the buyers who were under contract with them, they went to title, they couldn't close it for whatever reason. And so they just didn't think that it was solvable. And then, people like myself and people on your team come and try and offer another solution to provide liquidity on these assets that are unable to be sold. I think that it's, I don't think that people realize how common, these problems are. They're everywhere.
That's right. The sad thing is that if someone that owns it doesn't fix the problem, or someone like us doesn't fix it, I've seen research. The bulk of them wind up at a tax foreclosure sale and they get sold at the auction, and some new guy shows up with some cash and buys it, and it becomes an investment property of somebody else. So we're early in that process, or the sheriff has a way to deal with it. You're buying fractional interest from owners who may not even know they own something. Isn't that kind of controversial?
Yeah, I would say it is controversial. People are a little bit distrusting of me at first, because I have to sometimes explain to them why they're involved. They're not even aware that they have ownership in these properties. So that is an interesting thing to dance around. People are, they don't trust that I'm a random guy calling out of the blue and I'm saying, hey, I was doing some genealogy work. I found out you might be an owner on this property. Would you be open to me telling you a little bit more about how you're involved? So
that's like a shocking intro.
Yeah. And especially when we name drop, their grandfather, they're like, who the heck are you? Why are you calling me? So, how'd you get my number? And so I think I just lead from a place of like, hey, I'm just a guy. I'm trying to figure this out. Done a lot of transactions. I want to try and help you out here. Maybe provide you some money, put some money in your pocket to untangle this situation. So sometimes people are aware of the situation. Sometimes they are not. Honestly, it's a little bit easier for me if they're aware of the situation, because like I'll name drop the person who is involved, the original owner, and then I'll, mention the property. And I like it when people are, they say, hey, I've been trying to figure this out. I can't do it. And
it's somewhat already disarmed. Otherwise, you have to come in and now disarm and neutralize and then educate.
Yeah.
Whew. Most investors are taught to walk away from title issues, but you built your business around chasing these specifically. Why?
Well, I would say I kind of jumped into this last year almost out of necessity, I would say. Prior to doing these types of messy deals, I was flipping land, and I got to a point in my business where I was spending a ton of money in direct mail marketing, $10,000 or $15,000 a month, and I really only had a runway for like the remainder of the year. And the year prior, I did very well, but I just saw that there were changes in the market, and I came to one of your events actually, and it felt like a paradigm shift of the way in which I think about real estate opportunities. So the deals that I go after now, everybody turns away from, and I like that.
And you're used to negotiating against others with high marketing spends. Here, you're not good at negotiating against others, and you have low marketing spends. You're like, what world am I in?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, marketing spend is almost non-existent. I mean, there's some stuff, obviously, some softwares, but yeah, compared against my prior business, it's hard to compare that. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy these opportunities. It's fun. You learn something new every deal, really.
If it makes you feel any better, 10 years in, we're still learning stuff new all the time. It happens. You've pivoted 4 times in 5 years. Most people would call that chaos, but how do you know when it's time to reinvent or stick with a business?
Yeah, so I've pivoted, I think 3 or 4 times. I originally started doing wholesaling like pretty much any other real estate person who, got an Instagram ad. So I started doing wholesaling. I wasn't very good at it. I flipped a couple here and there. I think the first year I started doing wholesaling, I did 2 deals. Huge, $4,000. My accountant bill was like $600.
Oh, this doesn't work good.
Yeah, so I kept at it. I did an internship with someone, so I learned more about wholesaling, and then I stumbled into wholesaling infill lots, which I did pretty well at that. I think it was 2021. We did like 40 deals, all in Florida, and then as interest rates started to rise, I believe in 2021. I was fighting over $1,000 here and there on these infill lots, and I just realized that was not sustainable. So I could have gone deeper into that and just like pushed harder, tried to do more transactions. But I mean, I don't want to be fighting over $1,000. That's a rounding error now, So I saw that in my business, and then I pivoted to land flipping. So which slightly different than infill lots. So we were looking at deals.
More rural, kind of.
Exactly, yeah. So anywhere from 5 to 1,000 acres is what we were sending direct mail to try and acquire, generally sending direct mail pieces at 50% of market value, anywhere from 30 to 50% of market value, trying to then buy the property and resell for 85 cents on the dollar. And that was good. I learned a lot. I learned how to subdivide properties, learned how to do seller finance notes. And then towards the beginning of 2024.
That's when interest rates started really climbing.
Yeah, and also, a lot of the feedback that I was getting from sellers was, you're the 10th letter I've got this week. How are you different? I got offered, 25 cents more from this other guy. So I couldn't really compete there. And so I was, like earlier, I was saying I was spending a lot of money in direct mail marketing, and I just didn't see that as being a sustainable option for me anymore. So I wanted to continue doing that because I made good money the year prior, and the most money I had made in my real estate career so far. So I wanted to, continue doing that and grow it. But I went to one of your events in May of 2024, and I distinctly remember you saying, like, just listen to this with an open mind and don't pivot your entire business. Maybe do 1 or 2 extra deals a year when you come across them. But towards the end of it, I mean, I heard about one of the deals that you did where you netted $1 million on a deal, and I was like, holy crap,
It's possible.
That's insane. Yeah, it's insane. So I ended up engaging with you and your team, and very, very interesting. It was a paradigm shift in the way I thought about real estate, and I think it was like getting my master's degree in real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think pivoting is... you have to do. I've only ever had to pivot out of necessity, which I think is good because it's pushing you to grow to the next level. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, hopefully I don't have to pivot for a long time because I really like this model and I want to keep doing these deals. And I think that there's a lot of people that just are in need of help. So I don't foresee another pivot out of necessity anytime soon.
We addressed that question here because I asked myself, if I'm going to teach others to do this, first off, there was nobody else. There might have been 2 or 3 other people doing this somewhat just randomly in different states that I could find, but literally nobody. And I kept asking myself, if I teach other people to do this, it's going to hurt my business because my business is more valuable than any coaching business could ever be. So I cared about that, and I kind of examined that, and I realized we weren't scratching the surface out of one state. And I thought, I could train hundreds of people over 10 years and still probably not scratch the surface. hurdles, like the barriers to entry on this are a little different. You really do need some good training. You've got to figure out how to pay for this stuff. And the other thing is, people got really lazy in wholesaling in other ways because they could send out tons of marketing. They could do lots of cold calls or hire BAs that don't even work for you and get the leads to roll in. Here, you have to do some work to get those. It's very complicated to train an outsourced third party for this. So with those hurdles, I thought, I have enough of this in my career to get to the end of the career, even sharing it with others. And I felt safe about that. So to answer your question, I was concerned to begin with because I wouldn't have wanted to train you or others like you if I was concerned about that. So you didn't ask this question, but I'm kind of like pointing towards it. I still feel comfortable that there are many other states, tons of other deals, lots of runway before you get to the point where you say, oh gosh, what do I do?
Yeah. And I think another point on that is that, people pass away every day. People don't convey ownership in property correctly ever. Taxes accrue. Financial hardship is everywhere.
People make another bad decision every day.
Yeah. So as long as that continues to occur, I think that there will still be opportunities for this. And also, a deal today, something today might not be a deal today, but 2 years down the line, it might be a deal. So stuff needs time to marinate, I think.
Another hurdle to get people in this is folks want a paycheck right now. They want to get going. They like wholesale. It's quick money. But, it took a while to build a pipeline. It took us a long time. It took you a while. Once you kind of get that pipeline going, you really build something. But you still need to make really sound business decisions. And if you're not making sound business decisions, even if this is a great model, an operator may still struggle to make it work. So wholesaling is not rocket science, but it got so competitive that it got hard. Mm-hmm. I think this is a little different than that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what we do is it's not hard. I mean, it's challenging. It's not easy. It's simple. Or what's the phrase? It's like it's simple, not easy. It's simple, not easy. Something,
yeah,
whatever it is.
Simple, not easy.
Whatever the phrase is that I'm trying to say right now that I can't articulate. I mean, at the end of the day, my lead generation is really just pulling a list from the county and parsing through 10,000 Excel, like an Excel sheet of 10,000 records. Like it's tiring. It's like that's very repetitive, but like that's where the deals are that we find.
That's where the money is.
Yeah, it's like it's free. It's free to pull that, but then to spend 6 hours, 8 hours a day just parsing through that and understanding like what to look for. That's the challenge, which anybody could do it right now. It's not.
So as you go through this process of becoming an expert in your own right, you do that. Then like other hurdles that these businesses typically have, and I've raised 5 businesses like this and still own, large percentages of them today. So I've gotten to see this transition, plus doing some coaching stuff. The next hurdle will be, the next bottleneck will be capital. They're great deals. There's big equity. But as you improve, you start to be able to buy more and quickly or acquire, then you can solve the problems and sell, because solving takes a little time. Some of them takes a long time. Selling them takes several weeks or a month or two maybe. So that becomes the hurdle or the bottleneck, because you've got to convert those deals into cash. And if you can't convert them as quickly as you can find a new deal, you will run out of cash. And we've run businesses like this for 10 years. It still happens to us sometimes, and we're well capitalized, well experienced, and we watch for it. So that will be a big hurdle. As you figure out how to solve for that, another hurdle that's really common is then staffing. So you're like right now, you'll do anything. For the first couple of years, I got to the point where I could make $1 million in a year. I literally gave every moment of my time. I'm a slave to this because this is the best opportunity of my life. Well, when you do that 3-4 years in a row, you say, oh, I'm starting to get tired. I got money in the bank account, things work. Now I need some help. And we found buying or hiring the best labor you can, and you got to pay them well. That's how you can start to build an operation. And now 10 years in, it's really neat to have these operations going, great quality help, people that are really paid well, and it allows like a business to be somewhat stabilized and predictable and grow. So those are like the couple hurdles that I see in these kind of businesses along the way.
Yeah, I would agree. Luckily for us, I believe that our cash conversion cycle is somewhere in like the 60 to 90 day range, which obviously I'm doing less transactions than you to have like.
But that means you're choosing right, because there are some real bad, nasty deals out there. It's not that you're solving them better than anybody. It's that you're choosing, this looks fairly solvable quickly. It's a lower hanging fruit. Let me choose that instead of the complicated one. So you're being really wise on the front end then.
Yeah, and I think that my sales guy might not be as happy with me because sometimes I say to him like, "Come on, let's go after these easy ones." But no, we have fun with it. But yeah, luckily I think that we have gotten into some deals that have recapitalized relatively quickly, which I would like to continue doing that. But there are some deals that do take longer. I mean, I think the longest deal that we've done this year has been 4 months. But I'm also in one other deal that's been over a year. But that was before I got engaged with you all. I didn't know what I was doing. Just jumped into something. So, yeah, grateful for the cash conversion cycle and hopefully going to keep kind of diminishing
wise.
that.
As you start to want to have bigger inventory and grow, you really have to keep an eye on that because it's so easy to I'll just do this one, I'll just do that one. Let's say our average entry point right now, we ran a report recently, was like $48,000 per property basically. And while it doesn't seem like a huge amount, once you end up with, 40 properties, 50 properties, you realize you have millions out and you got to make sure to get this stuff cleaned up. So you really can't let your eyes, get bigger than your production and your repair work can be. And a lot of that's very personal. Like as I watch all these businesses operating here, one guy does way better at it. One guy has much hungrier eyes. And we have to deal with pipeline management a lot more of that company. That's the largest company. There's like 150 units in inventory right now. That's a huge amount. Millions and millions of dollars. But with that also comes risks. What if that partner gets hit by a bus tomorrow? What do we do with 150 units in inventory? He's by far the most productive partner. Do we take it and split it up across the other partners? Do I jump in and do it all? Like, there's all these incremental risks that change as your business grows.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll get there. Matt, your business is not just about finding hidden value. It's about dealing with real people, real families, deep conflict. How do you stay grounded and level-headed in the midst of all that chaos?
Yeah, I think just like taking a step back, but also trying to put yourself in someone's shoes about, how they got to that position, trying to understand like what their real motivations are. I would say a lot of the times, like, it is money for these people. They're pretty frustrated with the situation at hand. So, just having honest conversations with them and trying to put them into results-based thinking of like, well, what if you don't, what if you just let this go to tax sale? Like what happens then?
You're being ultra logical.
Yeah, well, then I don't get any money for the
A lot of salespeople will say, if you don't do that, then you're going to lose it. You're asking, well, what happens if you don't? Letting them talk about it, letting them come to that conclusion.
Yeah.
That's more natural for them, and they accept it more than if you say, well, if you don't deal with me, you're going to lose it to the tax sale.
Yeah. I never try and sell anybody on anything. I think like my personality, I'm just able to connect with people, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, I don't want to sell somebody because if they're not going to engage with me, they're not going to. Like they've already made up their mind. So, if somebody, and we can never force anybody to do anything. We just try and convey our points to them of like, hey, we're an option here on something that seemingly has very few options. Let me help you out here and like let me give you some amount of money so that the county doesn't take this on Tuesday. So
what percentage of people that you ask that exact question to agree to play ball?
I would say like 70%. I would say there's some people who they don't want to talk to me. They will never pick up a phone.
And if you've gotten to that point, you've picked the right lead, the right property, had the right conversation, and when you're ready to make that pitch, you're in the right place more times than not, it sounds like. That means your process is really good, I think.
Yeah. Still trying to dial stuff in, but yeah, always.
In the early days, I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. I was just calling and talking to people, trying to convince them to sell me their property. And I felt like all I did was spend my time on the phone with people telling me, get lost, go to hell, not dealing with you. I got it taken care of. And I thought, what in the world? And then over time, as the process improved, the results started to be more like what you're getting.
Yeah, well, we brought on a sales trainer this quarter.
Really?
And yeah. So she's been awesome. Shout out, Lindsay. So something that we're doing is this is kind of a gem. So the way in which I frame the initial conversation with somebody is like, hey, Logan, it's just Matt here. I was just giving you a quick call. We were working on a case relating to 123 Main Street. Saw your name might have some ties to it. So what we're doing with our initial conversations is we're doing a pattern interrupt so that these people, because everybody is, we went to an event last night and they were talking about wholesaling, how everybody says like, hey, this is Matt with 123 Home Buyers. if they're getting the same pitch. So I try to do a pattern interrupt to decrease the barriers and the resistance, because when we approach the conversation in that manner of, hey, it's just Matt. They're like, who, Matt? Okay, wait, did I meet you at the grocery store? Like, who are you? They're trying to like go in their brain about who I am in relation to them. And that
defensiveness is already down because they're like processing.
Yeah, exactly. And like the way in which I speak is very slow. It's methodical. It's all very purposeful. I want to stand out from people who are calling them about anything, right? If someone's pitching them car insurance, I want to just stand out as somebody who's cold calling them. So I'll approach it in that manner of, it's just Matt working on a case relating to this property. Wanted to see if we could help maybe untangle what's going on here.
It's interesting. So did you have to explain to the sales trainer what your business was like and what your goals were, and they kind of came together and said, okay, here's how we're going to approach it?
Yes. So she said that this was the hardest business that she's had to work on, but she found it very, very satisfying.
Why? Because it's so custom feeling or different?
Yeah, because the way in which we pitch, I think is pitch, I use loosely, is very different. And there's so much nuance to what we do. A conversation can start here and end up like in this weird like rabbit hole. So being able to create a structure around our scripting, and I don't even like to say that we use a script, but the preliminary introduction we do have scripted, which we found to be beneficial. But she's done a really great job at, helping us to have those intro calls. But she had come from also a complicated type of real estate investing, but it was just a foreign business to her, which everybody that I speak to in the real estate industry about what I do, they say the same thing. They're like, what are you talking about?
What do you do?
Yeah. Which is cool though, because then I'm the most interesting person.
Tell you what, so I moved to San Antonio at the end of my oil field career, and I got to meet people, and I moved to a specific neighborhood. It was like the cheapest apartment in the rich neighborhood, and I wanted to place myself there, hoping my life would be there. Neat thing is, I have an office and a home, and this is our community now. But early on, I would have those conversations with people, and what was fun is it was fascinating. I might be talking to some high-power lawyer who a CPA brought me in to meet, or just anything weird at lunch, like a random person at lunch, but every professional was fascinated with it. And I thought, how interesting is this? I've got something that these people that I want to be like are really interested in.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. My accountant is awesome. Very, very successful guy. I aspire to be at the level of wealth that he has one day.
Yeah.
And I'm like
Was he like shocked at what you did?
Yeah, and I'm a small fish compared to him and his clients, and he brought me on, which was awesome. He's great. Saved me a bunch of money this past year. But he found, same thing as what you just mentioned. He was like, this is so interesting. Never heard about this.
And he's seen so much. Accountants and lawyers see all the businesses. So you being unique to him says something.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, that was basically it. I was just agreeing with your point that, it's very uncommon, or people are just very fascinated with this model.
So this is a super creative business for people that can think on their toes and not be constrained by like operating inside a box. Like, this is a place to come and make money, because the questions you start to ask yourself, can this deal work? Here's a new problem. Can I fix it? Can I not? Can I turn this into a boon for me? We started dealing with some mineral stuff. So we purchased a bunch of interest in a couple South Texas oil fields. We're currently in the process of suing ExxonMobil. We just filed the petition. They wouldn't recognize our mineral interest and said they believed that we were not owners. We said, please prove it with your title chain. They wouldn't. So we had to sue. We now have subpoena power. We're requesting all those docs so we can prove it. But in this business, there's so many ways to do it. We bought judgments and liens for pennies on the dollar, and then went and foreclosed on real estate and wound up with the real estate through a judgment. We went and tracked down mineral owners. There's just a million ways to skin this cat, and the way it elaborates, it just continues. If you keep thinking differently, this business can continue to keep evolving, I guess you could say. So creativity is a backbone of it for sure. Something I think people will find fun is you're a really creative guy, so much so that when you came to sign up, you're like, hey, I'm not ready to pay for this. I got to wait for some transactions to have, but I'll swap you a note for the sign up. And I've had people ask for payment plans, and I'm like, no payment plan. I already got enough contingent work in my business. I don't need no more of that. But swapping a note, well, I got notes. I'm okay with notes. And that is the first concession I made to anybody. But I'm thankful you asked me for that because I like that note. It pays for my Cadillac Escalade payment. I love it.
It was paying for my my Lexus.
Great utility. But I don't know. That's just a testament to your creativity, and I'm glad you got in the program because seeing these kind of successes to me is really, really neat. Earning money in this is fun, but seeing somebody go from here to there, and I believe I had a really big influence in that, is like that makes me feel good.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I remember again after going to your event in May, I was like, you said, don't burn the boats. But then after that, I was like, I have to do this. Like, I absolutely have to do this. And I just, I really appreciate you being creative enough to accept that as payment. I think it's a pretty good note, too. It's
I like it.
Probably worth like 70 in collections, or 70 or 80 in collections.
Yeah, the payments are good. I love it. I'm happy for it.
Yeah, I appreciate your creativity and
so
accepting that.
You gave me some upside, and I gave you some upside.
Yeah, absolutely. But I've probably gotten, multiples on that. I have gotten multiples on that investment. So I definitely appreciate that. And yeah, creativity I think is super important. Not thinking, just in life in general, just not being linear and rigid, just being able to pivot when needed, especially like in our deals as well, right? We've done some transactions where we've given people some money up front and then the rest on the back end. I'm sure you've done a lot more creative, interesting things, but we're trying to deploy some creative strategies. And like I said, again, this is like getting your master's degree, using what your knowledge base is from other prior real estate ventures. It's all like you're learning all these things so that they can eventually, they get added to the tool belt.
Yeah.
And then you eventually just recognize when to implement certain things. And this is a business model where I think like you can become the most creative. Dude. Because there's just, there's a general path forward, but the way that you get there is
a lot of different routes.
Yeah, very, very different.
There's a guy that has been working on this stuff for a couple of years. I give him some guidance. I like him. We're friendly, and he's been working at it, but he just still had some hurdles. So he said, man, I want to get some help. He joined the program, and a very small tweak was us helping him seller finance a lot of these. And those are like a lot of creative pieces stacked on top of each other. But in essence, what that would be is like, let's say there's a tax foreclosure and there's 20 grand out. Instead of him, in the past, he would just pay that off, the 20 grand. Well, we've encouraged him to go make a payment plan. So now on the 20 grand, he can pay it off over 12 months. It's $2,000 a month or something. That lowered his cash out. Then if he's going to give the sellers, let's say 5 or 10, 20 grand, whatever, I told him just give him 10% now, close, and issue a note to him. And you might pay them monthly. You might pay them in 6 or 12 months. I don't know. Come up with that. But what was really fun is by doing that small tweak, he brought on a guy from his wholesaling business into this. And we reviewed a spreadsheet the other day. His pipeline from before this year and his current pipeline. First off, his current pipeline is way bigger than what before this year was. Second, cash conversion cycle shrunk. He's gotten better at it. Third, there's a column that shows what's his basis in the property and then what he's actually spent of that basis. What he's actually spent now is literally 5, maybe 10 cents on the dollar because he's deferring all these other payments, taking ownership, taking interest, solving all these problems, and then he'll now go pay off all those bills when it's time to go to market. Or recently I've encouraged him to get the property to market, get a buyer, and then when you close, pay off all those debts like you would a mortgage. Let the buyer's proceeds pay for all that, and you just take the net. So now you're shrinking your cash out even more.
Yeah, that's super smart. That's a little nugget, the promissory notes for like each individual interest. Mm-hmm. It's, if we're buying stuff for super cheap, just like cash out of pocket, but like if it's a little bit higher, then definitely that makes more sense and you're trying to get inserted.
$500, who cares? If I can give somebody 20, let's balance this.
Yeah.
Now I will tell you, I don't know, some people may not love this, but one of the concerns we had is sometimes these property owners are hard to get a hold of. They're unpredictable, things like that. And my worry was that we record a deed of trust and then I can't get a hold of his ding dong to give him his 10 grand. Like that's real and it has happened. When that happened, I went back to him and said, I started going to these folks afterwards and said, this is going to be collateralized, but I'm not securing this note. Most of these people don't really care anyway. But I tell them, I'm going to write you the note and you get a copy, I get a copy, but I'm not recording a deed of trust against this land. So I'm equitable. If I don't pay you, you can come sue me and get your money. No problem. You can foreclose on the property, but I'm not going to record that note, because when it comes time for me to sell this property, if I can't find your ass in the right amount of time, I'm not going to be held up by this unreleased mortgage after I've done all this work and I'm trying to get my money. So we stopped securitizing them like with collateral that way. We just write it all and give it to them.
Yeah, my experience with, I did something similar where it was unsecured. So we contacted a lady in Dallas, and her property, well, it was technically her husband's property, but he passed away, and there was a judgment already rendered for the tax suit. So I was surprised that it hadn't been foreclosed on already. And I reached out to this woman, randomly sent her a text, because I was not aware that the husband was deceased, but I reached out. Yeah, it didn't. There was no record of him being deceased. I ended up texting his wife, and she got back with me. She was like, "Hey, this property was sold. I'm not the owner of it." And I said, "Well, hey, like respectfully, I'm pretty sure that this property has not been sold. I'm not going to say the name. Is John the owner?" She's like, "Yeah, that was my husband." And so I got on the phone with her.
She read the judgment wrong. She got served and thought it was sold.
Exactly.
It hadn't yet been. It was ordered to sell.
Exactly. So we got on the phone with her, and we ended up agreeing for a $20,000 buyout. House is worth, I think, $130. I believe there was $30K in taxes. We actually thought it was worth much more, but we had to reset our expectations.
There's still 80 to 100 grand in net margin for you on that.
Yeah. So we ended up giving her $6,000 down, and then we just wrote into our purchase agreement that we're going to give you another $14,000 once we get this sold within 6 months. And the reasoning behind that is because there was a squatter that was occupying the property, which we were able to very easily get them out. We had somebody stop by and offer them $1,000. I was like, "Listen, guys, like, you're going to get out one way or the other. I'd rather have this happen very quickly, because I'm going to save a little bit of money, and you're not going to get anything, or I'll give you $1,000 and just get out next week."
Cash for keys is such a good answer.
Yeah. So they ended up getting out, cleaned it up. I think we ended up making it was less. We ended up making 50 on the deal somehow. However the numbers shook out.
You went from a deal that you thought you were going to make 100 or 120. You had significant margin fade, all this stuff changed, but you still made 50. A bad deal in the wholesaling world means the deal didn't close and you made zero, and you're out your marketing and some time. A bad deal in the flip world means you had to bring 30 grand to the table to close and you lost money.
Yeah.
A bad deal in this world means you only made 50.
Yeah, absolutely. And so another thing on that is we thought it was worth a lot more, and we had to reset our expectations of the market. So something that I am, pretty good at this point is having an assumption of what something's worth, and then get it on the market and see what the market actually says it's worth. Reset your expectations immediately, move it, recapitalize, and then put the money out into new deals. So not being married to an exit price that we think is the case.
An anchor that you artificially set anyway.
Yeah. And again, to juxtapose that to wholesaling, it's like, okay, I have this for 110. I need to sell it for 115. And your buyer comes in at 105. It's like, okay.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, exactly. One thing on wholesaling that I'll say about this, though, is I still do wholesaling as a result, indirect result of this business. Because,
what do you mean?
So obviously what we're looking for are these really messy, weird deals that we've got to try and untangle. But sometimes there's deals out there that are still a little bit messy, but maybe there's only, one owner of this property, and he's just a little bit, behind on taxes. He still wants a, X price, whatever the price is, where we can still make a margin. And so we're still picking up
so it's not worth you deploying the cash and going through all the work, but you can flip the paper and make fair money.
Exactly. Yeah. So if the wholesaling is an exit strategy on some of these deals that we're employing, because for certain deals, if I go and I take the property down using hard money or my own cash, it doesn't really make sense, because if there's a $50K margin there, what am I paying in interest? What am I going to pay for clean out costs?
You end up having a $25,000 margin after all these costs of capital and all that. But if you go wholesale off, probably make 20.
Yeah, exactly. So if we're going to wholesale a deal, it's anywhere from 20 to 35K, which is still pretty good. That's good margins for wholesale deals.
It's better than the average wholesaling deal. And this is I guess I'll have to do this.
Yeah, why not?
So this is a really good point, or a good time to ask this. What do you tell wholesalers out there that are swimming upstream and fighting the good fight right now? You're done with all that. What do you tell them?
Yeah, two things. And I don't mean to say this in I hope this isn't negatively construed. People keep saying that this is a hard market, and I do not agree. We're getting deals every single week, several a month. I don't really think it's a hard market. if I were to be wholesaling right now and solely doing that, I didn't have the knowledge that I have now of how to untangle these deals. It's really simple. I would just pull a tax delinquent list and then rip through that line by line, make manual phone calls or hire people to do that. And like that's where the ultimate motivation is. I don't know why I didn't solely do that when I was wholesaling, because I mean,
took us years to figure that too.
Yeah.
You're an entrepreneur and you got bright, shiny object syndrome and you're bouncing around everywhere. It takes a while to get clear all the noise and like focus. So don't beat yourself up on it. It took us a while.
Yeah, but I would be focusing my energy there, and then I would partner with someone on Logan's team or somebody who knows how to do messy title deals, because you will encounter them. So just call all of these leads, and then when you get a messy deal, just hand it off to somebody or try and like give them 70% to go and figure this deal out, and maybe take a little bit on the back end and try and learn. Try and do like 1 or 2 messy deals a year. You know, you don't have to jump right into it and solely do that, because it's hard to know what to look for. We're strategic about what we're looking for, and we've been able to hone that skill in. But yeah, so wholesaling advice, I would say just deal only in the tax delinquent list. Make a lot of calls.
Yeah. One of the things I think wholesalers should know is there are options out there. And if you're going to choose to do this for life, that's okay. But know that you will be at the mercy of markets. When they're good, it'll be good. When they're bad, it will be bad. You touched on this a little bit. In our case, when the market's great, I mean, we're printing. When the market is crummy, we have to lower the prices. But because there's so much margin, we have the ability to always continue to lower prices. I've not lost money for that reason on a deal like this yet. When the market was falling apart a year and a half ago, I knew people that were house flipping 20, 30 houses at a time and bankrupted immediately. I know people that were more experienced and had a lot of capital and had to bring $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to the table to close their house flip deals, and they had to do that with 10 or 20 deals. I know a guy that brought $1 million to close out all his wholesale deals or his flip deals. Those are the things that were happening. And for us, we didn't experience anything like that. We noticed that our revenue was dipping a little bit. So we go back and look at our inventory, and our inventory is building on the listing service. So that was a simple equation. I'm telling the guys, why did you artificially anchor yourself to some stupid price, lower the price? They didn't want to lower it that much. So I went into my wife's MLS and slashed all the prices 25% and hit fucking live. Guess what? Cash starts turning around, sales start happening, and none of them got mad at me. But we had to work through that. Those are the things we had to work through when the market was changing, not bankrupting or pillaging equity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my experience with that mostly lies within doing land flipping.
Did you learn that there?
I learned that there.
Raw land is much more sensitive to pricing than housing usually.
Yeah, and especially when we're looking at rural areas with smaller buyer pools, it's all price dependent. I mean, yeah, somebody can love the land, but if they can't afford to buy it, like they're not going to buy it. So we have to drop price or do notes to create liquidity and then sell the note on the back end to another buyer. But yeah, that's my experience with that, is having sat on deals for so long, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'll take anything for this. Like, I just want to get this off my books, especially some that I had interest on. It was stressful. So
how many markets have you worked in to date?
Like, when you say market, do you mean a county or?
Yeah, I would use the county, because like if you're wholesaling and you're in Dallas, you're in 1 or 2 counties. That would be like a region. So how many different places? You did in Florida, you did in South Carolina?
Yeah, so Florida within many markets. Like I don't know how many markets, but I'll say the states.
Let's do other states.
Yeah, so Florida, Kentucky, North Carolina, South Carolina. I've done deals in Maryland, Texas. I've sent mail in Georgia, never got anything. I'm sure there's other ones out there. I'd have to look in my old CRM and see. But
what was your experience like in the Carolinas?
I like the Carolinas. I know North Carolina, you can do affidavit of heirship. So I'll tell a story real quick about North Carolina. So when I first got started with you guys, I started in North Carolina because my thought process was, oh, they're in Texas. I'm going to be the guy that is in North Carolina. So that was my thought process. And I got started. I only did 1 deal there. I found it very challenging to do deals there for some reason.
What was challenging about that area?
It was values, and I didn't believe that the taxes accrued at a high enough amount for it to be inspiring. The most I saw, I remember 1 deal, it was worth $300K, and there was $10,000 in taxes. Very good deal, very disconnected type family on that. many owners. We didn't win the deal, but there was very few deals that I was able to really like move forward on. One of which being a deal where it looked, so it was this guy owned the property. Both of his parents passed away. We couldn't find any other owners on it, so we ended up hiring our private investigator in that area, and he found one of the other owners living in New Hampshire, and I spoke with the brother, and he said that he had been estranged from his family for 30 years, hadn't been to that county in 30 years, so we ended up offering him 20 grand, and he took it. So we signed a purchase agreement. Usually what we'll do is we'll just send out a closing package and close immediately. But in this case, I was very new, and I'm happy that I did this. I was very new, still thinking of, okay, we got an accepted offer. Let's get a contract in place, send it through title, right? We're not going to send it through title. But I'm glad I sent the contract because the next day he sent me a text as of, whatever date. Do not call me. Do not text me. I'm not going to move forward with this. And I was like, oh, my God.
What happened?
Call the guy. I'm like, dude, can we please reason here? I'm trying to, maybe I can give you a little bit more. And they just were unwilling. I think they maybe saw that the property might be worth more. And I was partnered with Kyle on that deal. And I told him, I was like, dude, we couldn't get the deal. He's like, well, you have a contract with him? And I was like, yeah. He's like, all right, well, we have a deal here. We have a deal. So unfortunately, not fortunately, unfortunately, we had to sue for specific performance because, we intended to deploy capital on this opportunity. We have an opportunity cost. We could have pursued other opportunities, but we chose this opportunity, and we wanted to uphold
So did the seller.
Exactly. So we wanted to uphold our obligations, and we expect that you do the
You
same.
make a commitment. I don't care if it's a week or a day or an hour, a month or a year. You make a commitment. You live up to it. I made a commitment. I'm living up to it. If you later on figure out that it wasn't the right answer for you, you don't get to change your mind. The laws don't make a provision for, oops, I changed my mind. They say, you put your John Hancock on it, you make a commitment, you're going to do it. And I know some people think that's aggressive, but by God, they expected us to do it. When they wanted to do the deal, they expected us to deliver. But then it changed. Anyway. Sorry.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So
you know my position on this.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't have that level of confidence, so I'm very glad to have leaned on Kyle in that instance.
What was the next step?
We performed, so we sent money to our attorney, and then a demand letter was sent to the individual.
Okay, so you went and closed, did your part of the closing, and then notified them.
Yes, and then he texted me the next day and said, I didn't know you were serious. And then we closed like a month later. It took a little bit longer than normal to have closed, but, a demand letter was what caused that to move forward.
Did he ever tell you later on why? Did you have any more correspondence, or at that point usually gets kind of like no more friendliness, just closed?
It was no more friendliness. My inference is that he just had cold feet, maybe thought it was worth more.
Dude, he went to Zillow,
Yeah.
put the address in there and was like,
yeah. His buddy was also in his ear, probably telling him that it was worth more, and went on Zillow and checked. So luckily we were able to get that closed. We thought it was going to be worth a lot more, but again, reset market expectations. We netted around 100 on that deal. Kyle and I
that was your first distressed deal.
Yeah.
Outside of the one you did on your own.
Yes. Yeah.
A deal went 100K.
Yeah.
So you can have a JV partner. Another thing I love about this is, and it's why it's so different than wholesaling, you got a $20,000 wholesale fee, which is standard. 10 grand to the guy that found the deal, 10 grand to the guy that sells it. Pretty common. But 10 grand doesn't move the needle that much. You made 50 grand and you partnered with someone who had the legal, was willing to spend the capital. They made 50. Y'all both made 50 grand. A JV pays you each 50. That only can happen in a really strong business model.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and not even the money. I mean, the money's great. That's awesome. But it's also the experience that I'm essentially hacking by working with these JV partners. I would not have had the confidence to do that. I could have funded it, but I had the money to do that.
But you've been nervous.
But I was scared. I was like, oh my God, I remember I was walking with my girlfriend later that night, and I was like, I think I have to sue somebody today. She's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about?
Who are you?
Yeah. It was honestly,
Let me ask you this. You just mentioned your girlfriend. We get busy talking about us in this situation. What's your girlfriend's experience been as she saw you doing another business and transition into this? I know what you're talking because I've talked this stuff to my wife. Well, we're going to have to budget. We have to be careful. And then as things change, she recognizes that stuff changes. What experience did your girlfriend had on her side of this?
In terms of watching me pivot?
Yeah, like she's involved. Like, you got a budget, you got to be careful. We're not going to go out Saturday night. Well, in this case, you're like, fuck, go out any night of the week. Don't like when money changes that much, when confidence changes, when options change so much, like things change. Like, do you think she's seen the difference? Do you think she understands how it feels? Like, how does she see
Understands how it feels. I'm not sure. I don't think a lot of people understand what it is like to be in, entrepreneurship and like have the bank account hit like a very low point. I've had that like 3 times in my life, and I'm like, oh shit, So I don't know if I don't really like express that much about finances in that capacity.
She thinks, man?
I don't know. I think I'm good at like just kind of staying even keel about things, but yeah. I mean, I think she knows that I like work hard and will try and make things successful.
So she may not know the full extent of how radically different things are now as where they were?
Probably not. I mean, she's more, I talk to her a lot more now about what I'm doing, and like, because we're bringing more people onto the team, hiring. She manages some people in the company she works for.
She works with you now?
She does not. No, she works for my buddy in Tampa, actually. He owns a marketing agency, but so she works there and is beginning to become more of a manager role. So I like to get her perspective on like some leadership stuff. So that's the extent generally of our conversations about business. I think sometimes I can get really like deep into what I'm working on, and sometimes the eyes glaze over a little bit. Oh, really interesting.
When I first met
She's
my
a good
wife,
listener, though.
it was really interesting because I lived in an apartment, I had a bunch of land, and I just sold a tract of land, so I had a couple $100,000 in the bank, but that was it. Lots of lots and $200,000, living in an apartment. She's living in an apartment. And one of our first dates, we went and walked on the Hayes Street Bridge from the downtown over to the east side. And I walked her by all these lots that I had, and it was getting dark, and it's the east side. And I'm like, I bought this one, I own this, and I'm going to sell this, and this is what I'm going to do. And I remember thinking, like, she's either going to think I'm fucking really crazy or really on a path somewhere cool, because this isn't a normal conversation that most dudes you're going to meet and has a regular job is going to tell you. But later on, I'll never forget, there were a couple times where I came in and said, and this was after we were married. No, this was before we were married. I was still saying I wasn't saying we, ex weren't married, but I said, it wasn't much longer after that. I was like, hon, I just did my financials. I don't think I'm worth over $1 million. Like, I'm a millionaire, and I'm still living in an apartment and driving a $4,000 Ford Expedition that's a little bit older. And I think she was like, what? You live in this apartment, driving an Expedition. I'm like, I know, but when you add everything up you got and subtract what you owe, this is what's left. She was like, okay. And it's become more radical over time. This happened not long ago. We wrote a check. I wanted annual distributions to be $1 million from rental portfolio or business or whatever. We normally wouldn't distribute that much. We distribute $200,000-300,000 a year to a partner. I use that to live on, but most of my wealth was kept in the company. Well, things have grown a lot in the last several years. We had a lot of expansion, done a lot of land development, big stuff. And I wrote this check when we lived in our old house. It said annual distribution, $1 million to Logan and Lisette Fullmer. I signed it, taped it on my mirror. I'd look at that thing every day, and I'm like, how am I getting closer to this? And when we sold our house and moved a year and a half ago, I packaged it all up, stuff, moved, and I was unpacking stuff the other day. This was right after the first quarter of the year. And I remember opening this thing up, and I was like, holy cow, we didn't get to the annual distribution of $1 million. This was my Q1 distribution. So we shot way past the annual distribution.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was the Q1. Obviously, if it continues, that year would be like remarkable. This was last year. And I'm thinking, so that brought me back to like walking my then girlfriend to these little crummy vacant lots in the east side, setting these goals, and then just blasting through some of them. And it's been this interesting experience. Like, part of this journey is completely mine, and no one will share some parts of it. But there's this other part that my wife gets to share as the partner of someone who's doing something interesting. So that's what got me asking, like, how much should your girlfriend know? How serious are y'all? Do you think she would see you or your life differently if you shared more about this?
Maybe. You've got me thinking now.
Are you worried? Some guys say, I don't want to share that much.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I have to put some more thought into this. I mean, yeah, perhaps I should start sharing more about the business, what I do.
My wife
finances.
felt like she was along for the ride, and she was here from the early days, and she felt so much more vested early on, especially today when we talk about that. She says, well, I've been here through all this. So it's kind of a neat experience.
Yeah, that is true. My girlfriend and I have been together for a few years, I think 3 years now. 3, almost 4. I had to remember.
Okay,
Sorry,
y'all are
Sophia.
serious then.
Yeah, but I was doing I've pivoted a few times while dating her, so.
She's seen some of that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure maybe we got to get her on the pod and see what her perspective is.
That'd be fun to hear. Maybe when you go home, ask her. Somebody asked me, say, I don't know. What are your thoughts? She may have much more admiration for what you're doing, or she might be scared about it. I don't know. These are good things to talk about.
Yeah. I think the extent is I tell her, hey, I text her during work, just bought out 50% of a deal.
She's like, what?
Nice. She goes, nice, Matt.
All right, so we're halfway through the year right now. Tell me about the rest of your year. What are you planning? What's changing? What are you targeting for revenue, head count? What are you going to do differently in the last half of this year?
Yeah, so super excited about this year. Every day is very exciting to go to work. I feel extremely energetic all the time.
So great.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so what I love about the business nowadays is that like I can bring people onto the team, pay them, and they're going to make good money. So anyway, we have one sales guy on the team. We have a genealogist. I have a VA who helps do some data work. We're testing out bringing on a cold caller, which I know that there is conflicting thoughts on that, but I'm looking for somebody who can validate phone numbers for me and have 30 seconds get somebody's attention for 30 seconds.
Got it.
And set an appointment. So we'll test that out. They should be hired next week. And bringing on an operations manager who will start Q3. She's already working with us, but we're going to kind of ramp her up. So
Are they
she's
all
on the team.
in person except the one virtual caller?
Genealogist is virtual, but she's U.S. based.
Okay.
The VAs are virtual. And then my operations manager, she's actually also virtual, but she's in the U.S.
Wow.
I've
Full
worked with her.
virtual.
Yeah. But I've worked with her in the past, and she's like a very smart lady. So I like working with her. And then we're going to bring on another salesperson. So we'll see when that happens. I definitely want that person in the next month or two.
Remember when we talked about the next hurdle is going to be capital with that head count? I know you can pay some of them commissions and contingently on closings, but I would be very mindful of what you're retaining, how quick your conversion is, because the moment you start to hire, like, you're going to see that. Like, your monthly nut overhead is going to be consistent and grow. So you'll have big months and slow months. It's just how it kind of is. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, like, be keenly aware of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to run. I have to do some Q3 planning. Probably going to do that on the plane back home. Try and understand, like, where our numbers are at. But, yeah, in terms of revenue, this is good.
Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry to interrupt you, but let me go back.
Okay.
With that team, you should be able to do multi-million-dollars a year. With that head count, you should be able to do several $1,000,000 a year, like, very easily, once you get everyone skilled, trained, and up to efficient. And if you don't have any significant turnover, dude, that's definitely a multi-million-dollar a year team for sure.
Mm. Yeah, I was setting goals for next year. I think a reach goal, which I don't exactly know where we'll be this year, but I want to try and get to like 2 to 3 million next year, 2026. So we'll see. That's a goal.
Have you ever earned that much before?
No. But also I set a goal for this quarter to do $500,000 in revenue, which I was like, oh, this is kind of scary. This is a little bit of a reach. But I think we're at 380 for the quarter right now. So, and we have 10 more deals in the pipeline.
Oh,
Some of them
wow.
are wholesale deals. But yeah, we should.
You're going to do it.
Yeah, we just took ownership of a property today where we have to do a little bit of work and then put it on the market immediately. We should make 110 on that one. So we're going to, as long as that.
That one almost gets you there.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we'll get to 500K this quarter. And I think my takeaway on that is just set bigger goals, because I think my number should be around like 650 by the end of this quarter, year to date. So I just want to duplicate that. And then for the latter half of the year / grow it.
Set those goals big, man. I've always heard people say that, and I'm personally bad at setting goals because there's so many variables, especially in a business like this. It's not a manufacturing company where we need to produce 6,000 widgets and we'll have this revenue because they all sell immediately. That's not it. There's a lot of this, as you know, but I encourage you to set those goals big, man. Everybody that I talk to that gets in this business takes it seriously and really goes after it, always destroys the goals they have set. So don't be stupid and unrealistic, but every goal that I've set, every one of them has been just destroyed. And I say, well, I guess I'm not setting these high enough, but it's still scary then intentionally setting a goal that you know is really high, but I've done them in the past and they've worked. But you've got to look yourself in the mirror when you write this goal down and you're like looking at yourself saying, you're going to do this, dude. I got to do this or I'm wrong. I've let myself down. Like, dude, that's some like tough reconciliation there.
Yeah. It also pushes you though to, you know, be better, become better, work harder, become more efficient. Figure it out. Yeah. What's the quote? I think it was Elon Musk. Maybe someone smart said, like, take your 10-year goal and put it into 6 months.
Oh, yeah, I've heard. Another thing they said in that vein is you grossly overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 10 or something like that.
Yes, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, definitely. This business model has, like, allowed me to, I feel like, make real money, which is really cool.
Real
like, we've
money.
got, like, I actually
salary money. Real money.
Yeah. I have, like,
this is lifetime money. This is, I get to buy the house I want. My kids are going to whatever college they want. I got money in the bank, and I don't have to look at my account every day.
Yeah.
That's like real money.
Yeah, I'm very grateful because I don't look really, I mean, I don't go out and spend like crazy money on dumb stuff, but like I never look at the price of like groceries or like, I don't even think about gas. You know, like all these things that are like, I probably take for granted and like, that to some people who are struggling to like make ends meet, it's like just not, it's a non-issue, you know, and I'm very grateful to be in a position to like not have that type of negative energy occupy my headspace where I can just try and work to become the most efficient I can be to then increase my hourly rate. Like another point on that is like I order all my food meal prepped. So like I don't cook except eggs in the morning. I heat up my food.
But you don't have to worry about what it costs.
Exactly. So it costs $1,000 a month. But if I want my time to be worth $1,000 an hour, then...
Which at this point it is. Let's say you make, I don't know, let's say you do $500,000 for the first half of the year and $500,000 for the last half of the year. That's $1 million divided by...
I'm also taking July off.
I love that you can do that. So if you do $1 million divided by 2050, I think is how many work hours are in a year. That means you're $500 an hour right there. That food is only 2 hours worth of your time. But it saves you all kinds of time fooling with it.
Yeah, I like looking at stuff from that perspective. So grateful to be in a model that kind of allows me to get to that point and like further push it up.
You know, I've seen a fair amount of people come through our program, and there's some people that end up being outliers and just are extreme producers. There are some folks that really never make it off the ground a lot. They just don't. You did great. You made it off the ground. You're growing this. You're doing well. If nothing changes, this could be a great career for you. What do you think is different about you and the way you worked as opposed to some people that just don't get off the ground? What's different about you?
I think persistence. So I will actually mention this, like I'm talking about numbers and like, oh, I'm so successful, like great, whatever. I don't necessarily know if I feel that way personally about myself. Like I strive for greater. But when I first started this, I actually found it to be, like even with coaching, I found it to be kind of challenging for myself to like really start ramping up. It took me until the latter half of 2024 until I really started to like hit my stride, I would say. It felt like a plane that was kind of like bumping up and then finally taking off. So I think that persistence and like wanting a desire to learn, being hungry is what it takes. Yeah, hungry, you know, because worst case scenario, like I'll just go broke and then go move home. And like, that's like, so there's a concept called fear setting.
I like that you're willing for that to be an option though.
Yeah. Well, I've been close to going broke like 3 times or maybe two times, a few times, a handful of times, all scary. So like, I'm actually very grateful for that though, because like, I'm sure I'm going to experience that again where I've got like $1 million out and I have like, I hope I have kind of took some chips off the table, but like, I'm sure that I'll experience that again. I hope not, but I'm sure it might happen. Anyway, so just becoming able to deal with pain and suffering and become more resilient, I think is important. And then just staying hungry. I have big aspirations.
That's a lot of it right there. I think.
Yeah. Just like also burning the boats. I graduated college. I got a degree in entrepreneurship, but like, I don't
really?
intend on getting. I don't intend on ever having a job. I've never really intended on that. I went to a real estate. I'm kind of going off on tangents right now, but I went to a real estate event when I was 16. And
Really? That's young for going out on it.
yeah, my dad took me to one. It was like a multifamily event with this guy in Boston. And so I went to that, and I just recently read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So like that was a paradigm shift in the way that I thought.
Did you get that from your dad, or did you find that on your own?
Yeah, he made me read it. He was like, "You have to read this book." And I was
Good
like, "I
for
don't
your
care
dad.
about this book." Like, and so it was a huge change in my life. But I remember when I was at that event, people took me seriously as a 16-year-old high schooler, which was very impactful for me. But also hearing about people's stories on deals, like, "Oh, I just made $100,000 acquisition fee to buy this 100-unit apartment building." I'm like, "Oh my God, you made $100,000 to buy a deal? That's insane. That's somebody's salary. Like, I want to make that one day. You got that on one deal." So those were very impactful, and I knew from an earlier age that I wanted to be in real estate and only be in real estate, at least like to start my career. And so real estate's always been the route I wanted to take. And yeah, so to bring that back, I'm only going to be in real estate, and I'm going to make things happen and not quit.
What was your dad's profession?
Both of my parents actually are, both my parents are divorced, but both of them teach karate.
That is not entrepreneurial in my mind relative to what it is you're doing.
Yeah, they both own their businesses, so it is somewhat,
some
it's
entrepreneurship
entrepreneurial, but yeah, very, very stark difference to real estate
Wow.
investing.
Holy cow, yeah. I've never met or known of a person that has like a small training company like that and made it big. They can make a good, comfortable living, but they're not going to go big usually.
Yeah, I think that if I were to do that, I would probably try and grow it to a certain degree and then exit at some point. Because like there is a monthly recurring revenue aspect of it, but it's not. I never took much karate. I got, I think, one belt and then stopped.
Was your dad disappointed?
I don't think so. I can't be expected to listen to them in the house like as like my parents, and then also extracurricular activities.
Yeah.
So I think that was a major
That's
reason.
interesting. Your dad was somewhat entrepreneurial there, but he was going to multifamily events, things like that. So he had an urge there to do more. Huh. What do your parents today think of what you do for a living?
I don't know if
First,
my mom
do they
fully
understand it?
I don't think my mom fully understands it, but my dad does. He thinks it's interesting. I want him to start trying to get a couple deals in Maryland, but or maybe New York. I've heard New York is an affidavit of heirship state. I don't know if that's true. Yeah, I don't know if my mom fully understands what I do. Maybe I need to give her a crash course. My dad does. I talk to my dad a lot about business.
Okay.
Use him as a confidant in business.
So a lot has changed for you in the last 10 months. But let's go back 10 years. What is the Matt of today tell the 10-year ago old Matt?
Yeah, well, I'm 26.
What does a 16-year-old Matt need to hear from you?
Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad and go to that event. Go to college, definitely. I didn't want to go to college. Glad I did.
Why did you go?
I went to University of Tampa. It was I wanted to go far away from home to expand my wings, and beautiful weather, a lot of opportunity. Now I still live in Tampa. There's a lot of entrepreneurs there. Everybody's doing something interesting.
Yeah. South Florida's like popping these days.
Yeah. What would I tell my younger self? I don't know. I mean, just
what does a 16-year-old Matt need to hear from the person you are today?
look at things over a longer time horizon, I would say. Read more books. Try and find somebody who can mentor you, like, immediately. Work for free. Become good at sales. Go to networking events. I'm pretty extroverted, I would say, but, like, lean into that more. I think I became more extroverted in college, but yeah, so just learn more, network, learn sales, find a mentor, try and do something in real estate.
Stay curious, get to work, stick in real estate.
Yeah.
That's fun to hear. We change so much, and especially in times like this, a lot can change really rapidly.
Oh, invest in Bitcoin.
And God. Give me some 10-year-old go Bitcoin. We see things so differently. So sometimes I think about, what I wanted to hear 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And Matthew McConaughey, some interview, he mentioned who his mentor would be like him 10 years senior. And I thought that, or like who he'd aspire to be. And I thought that was really interesting because we choose the direction we're going to go. And all these things that we think about, these influences we have, we really kind of pick the direction somewhat. But the question is, do we wind up where we want to wind up or not? So I think that's one of the benefits of asking yourself the question, who's this guy 10 years ago? What were you thinking? Where were you headed? What did you want? Now I got some wisdom. Now I got some experience. I would love to talk to, I'm 30. I'd love to talk to the 53-year-old Logan because a lot could happen in the next 10 years. I'd love to know where this goes.
Yeah.
But we just got to go write that chapter.
Yeah. Maybe another thing I would say is set goals, set like bigger goals. Maybe I'm going to write a letter to my 36-year-old self and see, try and hold on to that.
Stick it in your house, save it on a hard drive somewhere.
Yeah.
I've got one that we did in elementary school. I wanted to be an architect. And I drew this little house, and I said, I want to be an architect. I want to live in a house with glass walls and stuff like that. And when I graduated college, my mom gave it to me. Or no, it wasn't college. It was, when did she give that to me? I was moving into my first office here about 10 years ago. And she gave me that. And she's like, remember you want to be an architect? And I was like, whoa. It was so shocking to see what mattered to me then at 12 as opposed to 33. Mm-hmm. Remarkably different.
Yeah. I mean, you can use architectural, abilities in what you do now, which is cool.
That's true. At that time, I said I wanted to live in a house with glass walls, and I always felt caged in a little bit. I think that's why I was always attracted to the mid-century modern construction style. And at that time, the home we lived in had a flat roof and huge windows, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. It was a 1964 flat roof mid-century house. So it was neat. I didn't build those houses, but I did end up living one at that time.
Manifested it.
Matt, there are newbies out there that are on the fringe of real estate. Maybe they're in it already and not sure where to go. What do you think those folks need to hear from you?
You can do it. I mean, you're not different than me or Logan. While both of us are probably, Logan's much farther ahead. I'm probably farther ahead than you as somebody who doesn't know what you're doing. We're not different. It doesn't matter if you're smart or dumb or whatever. I don't mean to say dumb, but if you, all you really have to do is learn something, pick up the phone and make some calls. That's very, very simple advice. I would say try and find somebody that you can work for free, maybe get offered commission, and just learn as much as you possibly can. Read books about real estate. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Probably read books about psychology as well. Go to networking events and learn from other people. But I would say most importantly, finding somebody who can mentor you, whether it's somebody who's gracious enough to do it for free or you pay somebody, wait tables, make $1,000 and pay somebody, buy a course on something. I bought a lot of courses. I've probably spent $100,000 in coaching, mentorship throughout my various different real estate endeavors. And I would say all of it has been meaningful. I don't think I've been, I've kind of vetted people before getting involved. So do that as well, I would say, if you end up buying a course. But to just consolidate information, to purchase consolidated information from somebody else who has done the work, done the deals, that's very meaningful because you cut your learning curve way down. Mm-hmm. And if you can absorb, consume 10 hours worth of information and then go out and try to get a deal, you're going to have a high more likelihood to do that.
It's shocking. Instead of going to college for 4 years, go take a couple of courses and get on the phone. You might change your life that summer.
Yeah. Find an honest individual. I would say similar to if you invest into a multifamily property, find a solid operator, somebody who's going to steward you properly. So do some vetting, find somebody who's a good person, and then learn from them. Or again, someone that you can just work for free for. I think the whole thing is just learn as much as you can.
Yeah.
And then, but take action on stuff.
Go learn and go do the work.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun. I appreciate your time here today, Matt. I got to say, I hate using the word coach and student. It's more colleagues because we're all in this business together. We just had a service that we could offer for consulting, but when a guy like me runs a program like that, you're the type of person that I want to be in it because it works well. It's fun when people do the right stuff, and this is a good journey to have together. So I appreciate you entering into our stratosphere, participating here. Like, thanks so much for being a guest, and thanks for all that. I appreciate it, Matt.
Thank you for everything as well. Appreciate
No
it,
doubt.
Matt.
My commitment to you is to deliver the most interesting, messy, and profitable real estate deals on earth. And in exchange for that, I only ask that you subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend who can benefit. Let's dive in.